Okay, so here are the coaches for our girls and boys basketball teams. And I will be posting their emails on the website. I think the head coaches are already posted on the website. So just so you know, and they are working out, who is going to be coaching which team. But we have a wonderful staff of coaches, and I'm super excited to introduce them. And most of them, I think, are actually here, although we now have, 81 people here in the meeting, so I'd have to scroll down to make sure. But Stuart and Lisa are both here, so as we go along, if there are questions for the girls or the boys program, something that's more general, not specific type questions, they might be able to step in and answer some of those questions. Okay. All right, let's see if we can, there we go. Okay, so the first part of my presentation, the very first slide here, is just about eligibility. And some of this, I think a lot of you know, but there is a few changes for basketball. Okay, so to be cleared, hold on a second here. There we go. To be cleared, just to try out. Okay, so tryouts start a week from tomorrow. And just to try out, students need to have a completed physical form signed by a doctor. And having gone through hundreds of these forms, I will tell you, just be careful as you turn them in. Sometimes doctors don't sign them and you think they did. The physical is good for 2 years from the date of the exam. So it's not from 2 years from when you turned it in, but 2 years from the date of the exam. So sometimes families turn in physical forms that are actually a year old, the actual physical that happened a year ago. So just kind of be aware of that. I try to notify people as the physicals expire, especially if you've signed up for a particular season sport. Okay, the registration form with emergency and insurance information. And this is the same information that I'm going to give to the coaches if your child makes one of the teams. So we want to make sure that's really current emergency information. Okay, a signed concussion cardiac arrest form, a completed COVID waiver, and a screener, which I know seems a little weird because the screener seems like it's a kind of right now type of document, but it's a requirement by the district. And then there's a completed COVID testing consent, or you can instead choose to send me a proof of COVID vaccination. So one or the other. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a second, because that was not required in the fall. And it's because the basketball in general is considered a higher risk COVID sport by our state. And so there are some additional requirements for basketball. Okay, so that's the eligibility for just trying out. But then there's a whole nother level of eligibility for playing in a game. And every student needs to turn in, this won't start until January, because the games won't start until January, but they need to turn in a grade check, and they have to have a 2.0 grade point, and no more than one failing grade. Okay, so there's some odd situations where you could have 2 failing grades and actually still have above a 2.0. So just be aware of that. We don't have a lot of students that have trouble, but the idea here is to help support our student athletes in their academics. And so the first time that, the first week that a student or a player has trouble with their grades, they will get a warning. They'll still be able to play in the game, but they'll get a warning. And coaches, I know this is a little bit news for you. So this is for both coaches and families. The second week, the player will not be allowed to play for half of the game. And then the third week, they won't be able to play for the game at all, any of the game. And then they will be, taken off the team. So they have kind of 4 weeks to pull it together. And we know that our coaches are great mentors for our students. So We try to have our coaches work with the students in terms of just helping support them, even just helping them learn how to communicate with their teachers and get that avenue of communication open so that they can figure out what they need to do to improve their grades. Okay, that's due on Wednesday of each week, and there's a box outside our office, and the students can just put it in there. They can print it off in the library. I want to kind of not get a lot of these forms on email, only because my email box is already overflowing, and it's a lot easier for me to make sure your child is cleared if they just turn that form in. But if it's really, there's something happening, you really need to email me, that's fine too. Okay. And then there may be other expectations that individual coaches set, and those we will support those as each team and each coach determines what they would like to set for expectations for their players. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So specifically this COVID testing. So I just want to talk about that. What is going to be required here is for the unvaccinated players or any players who choose to get tested. Okay, so even if you're vaccinated, you can choose to do this just out of abundance of caution. All those players will need to get tested every Tuesday and every Friday. Okay, so Friday is the day before the game days, and then every Tuesday. And you'll notice from the screen here that if your child is absent on Friday or they miss their COVID test, they cannot play in the game the next day. Okay, so that's kind of a big deal. I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. You can turn in, there's two ways to deal with this particular requirement. You can, if you give me a vaccination card, and if you choose to do that and your child is vaccinated, then they will not be required to get the testing. Or you can just turn in the consent form, and then we'll schedule the testing at our school. And this is rapid testing. It's like 15 minutes before they get the results. It will be done in our COVID health room at school during homeroom. And the child, every player gives themselves the test. There's just somebody monitoring them, and it includes putting a swab in their nose about like ½ an inch. So it's not really deep. It's not one of these, scary situations or anything. And so what I need from a lot of you, that this might be the first time you're hearing this news or really understanding it, is I need you to send me either that signed consent form. You can email it to me, or put it a hard copy into the front office. Or if you choose instead, you can send a picture of the COVID vaccination card. So either one. And the next week, I'm going to be just pulling everything together, and I'll probably send emails out, because our first COVID test is going to have to be before tryouts. They want everyone cleared before tryouts. So that means next Monday, a week from today, any students who need to get tested, that'll be their first day of testing, just because it's the day before tryouts. But after that, it will be Tuesdays and Fridays. All right. Okay, so Jeff is asking, the grade info goes to me, and then any issues are communicated to the coach. Yeah, we'll talk about the rosters here in a second. All of the grades that get turned in, I go through them and I'm checking the grades. Okay, and I'm happily this year also, they're giving me access a little more. In the past, I didn't have any access to any of the grades students had unless they were in my class. And so I have a little more access this year, so I'm able to kind of check out some things that I wasn't able to before, which is going to be super helpful. And that is, I will explain how that ends up going to the coaches in a moment. Okay, all right, let's see here. Any questions about the COVID testing? All right. Okay, so during the safety processes that we're going to have to follow during the practices and games, I already talked about this biweekly COVID testing, and then the coaches are going to have to take an attendance at every practice, and this is for contact tracing purposes. Okay, it's always so just a good thing to do so that we know where students are. But so wearing masks, now this is interesting. They have just now pulled the requirement to wear masks in the middle of a game. So all coaches and players have to wear masks when they are not in the middle of playing basketball, actually in the middle of a game. So if they're on the sidelines and they're in the huddle, if they're on the bench, if they're in a line for, you know, working drills and practice, they have to have their mask on then. But when they're actually out on the floor, they can pull their mask down. When they're playing in the middle of a game, they can also pull their mask down. So that's, I think, a little bit different than what you may have experienced in the fall. And I wanted to make sure to tell you that. The social distancing that's required in basketball is 6 feet, not 3 feet. So in the classroom right now, the social distancing is 3 feet. So this is a little bit further, obviously twice as much. And so when they're on the sidelines, the coaches will be pulling, you know, trying to get the kids 6 feet apart. Same in like if they're in lines for things or and when they're on the bench. Okay. All right. There's no sharing of water bottles, and the coaches will be cleaning the equipment and the pennies on a regular basis to make sure everything's cleaned up. There will be a designated area for students to keep all their personal belongings, their bags and things like that when they come after school. And there will be a specific bathroom. They cannot go back and go around the building at all. So once they get into the gym, they're going to be in the gym, and then they'll go specifically to bathrooms that are in the locker rooms there. We will provide the PPEs like, you know, masks and gloves and hand sanitizer and things like that during practices. We'll have there, and it will also be at the games available. All right, and then there will be a particular procedure if anyone comes up with a COVID case or has symptoms, so that we suspect they might have COVID. Okay. Any questions on this one? All right, oops. Okay, so if your child tests positive, okay, during the day, they'll follow the same process we do at school. They'll stay in the COVID health room, and you will get called to come pick your child up, and all of the quarantining and contact tracing stuff will go into place. If it's after school during practice, okay, the coach will be contacting you from the emergency number that you included on your registration form, and will also contact me. And then your child will be in the area of the gym. There's a lobby near the outside doors, and they need to, you know, not be near other players, obviously, and they'll wait there for when you can come pick them up. And at that point, also contact tracing will go into place. So again, if we can, you know, try to keep that social distancing, then even if someone ends up testing positive, you know, it might not shut down the whole team. So that's one of the things we want to do, is just be really careful to try, you know, obviously we don't want anyone to test positive. Hopefully this won't happen, but we want to also just be really careful so that if that does happen, that it affects the fewest number of people. Let's see. So it tells other players who have not maintained the 6 foot social distancing will be considered in close contact, and then they will also need to quarantine. Okay. All right. All right, tryouts. So for the girls, the tryouts are going to be, and let's see here. I'm going to just really quick ask, Lisa, can you see the whole screen? Does it show the whole screen so you can see the times?
I see the first bullet point.
Okay, but you see the whole bulletin point, because
I do.
My screen's not showing it. I just want to make sure you guys can see it. Okay. So 6th graders are on Tuesday for the girls. and Thursday from 4 to 5:30, and then on Wednesday by invitation. And 7th graders are Wednesdays and Thursdays. And all of this is posted on the website, so you don't have to, write this down, but you're welcome to do so if you want. And the 8th graders are Wednesday and Thursday also, but Thursday is by invite. And Lisa, did I get that correct? Is there anything that was a mistake here?
Yep, you nailed it.
Okay. All right. The boys tryouts. All grades will try out every day, except that they will post cuts. So, again, it starts Tuesday, November 30th, and they will run from 5:45 to 7:30. So they'll have the late slot that first day. And they would like all of the boys that are trying out to come to the auditorium at 5:15 so they can process the registration, make sure that they're cleared and so forth. Okay, so when players arrive at tryouts, I produce a list of all of the students that have turned in all their paperwork. And the coaches have to go through and make sure that each of the players is on the list. If they are not, okay, if they're not cleared, then they're going to come out to my portables, Portable 5, and I will be contacting, whoever we can contact to try to talk about what still needs to be turned in. And sometimes, that turns out that the player actually had it in their backpack, and we solve it and they head back to tryouts. Other times there's something missing, like the physical form, and we have to, they won't be able to try out until that physical gets turned in. Okay, so just know that it's, this is not anything to do with the coaches. They just have to follow their rules of, okay, is everyone cleared? And if they're not, they come out to my portable. All right. And Laura asked a question about the quarantine period. And Laura, I'm going to have to get the updated version because it just changed. Remember, it used to be the 14-day and now it's a 7-day quarantine period. And I do think it's different if you're vaccinated. I'm not sure you have any quarantine period at all. So there is a difference there. So I will make sure that gets posted on the website also. Okay, and then there's a question about how many players typically try out for how many positions. Okay, it's a great question. Right now we're looking at about 60 players, 60 girls and 60 boys that are trying out. And I don't think, and again, coaches, you can correct me, but I don't think any coach wants to keep more than 12 to 15 on a team. So, so if we have, we have limited gym space and the coaches, if we can keep at least 3 teams, sometimes we can push that and maybe even have a 4th team, but that's really pushing it. So at least 3 teams for girls and 3 teams for boys. So you can kind of do the math there on how many people will need to get cut. Let's see here. All right. And let's see, I think we've got, let's see. So, one of the questions here says, are there cuts for boys but not for girls? No, we're expecting cuts for both. And all of the coaches have to be vaccinated. So it's like another good question. Let's see. And then Coach Lisa says girls will take about 40 to 45 players. So if there are 60 that come out, then we're going to be cutting about 15. Okay. So 5:15 is in the cafeteria. Yeah, cafeteria, not auditorium. The slide says cafeteria. Does it say auditorium on the in the website? Is that why you're asking the question?
Mary, you said auditorium in your presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's cafeteria. It's definitely cafeteria. I apologize. Okay, so the rapid tests are going to be scheduled for next Monday during homeroom. Yeah, Monday. Yeah. Now, Friday, we won't be in school. At least I won't. All right. Now, both, if you happen to have, okay, so the girls, are going to email everybody Thursday evening with the results. The boys, as they make their cuts, we will post a list across from the front office. And if you happen to have a child who is playing Ultimate Frisbee in 7th grade or 8th grade, which means they still have practices the week after Thanksgiving, please email the coaches. Okay, and I have the emails up there for Stuart Mitchie and Lisa Barnett to let them know, and make sure to mention the name, the grade, and which tryout they're going to miss. And we don't want any player to feel like they have to double practice and then go to tryouts. So, take care of your children and just let the coaches know. We understand the situation. We didn't expect for the fall season to be overlapping, so we're going to adjust as we need to. Okay. All right. And there's going to be 3 boys teams. Okay, that's a question there. How many teams? And if you need to confirm that all the paperwork has been submitted, you can email me, yes. And how many girls 6th grade teams? So I don't think there's necessarily, none of the teams are specifically 1 grade. So generally 6th graders will probably be on the JVC, but last time we had 6th graders on varsity and we had 6th graders on JV, and so we don't have, unlike Ultimate Frisbee, it's not a 6th grade team, 7th grade team, and 8th grade team. It's a varsity, JV, and JVC, and the coaches cut based on the skill and the attitude and the coachability. And coaches, if you wanted to jump in on that at all, or you're welcome to add to that.
I just want to say there's probably.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say there's probably a little bit more flexibility this year than usual for the JVC teams and the JV teams, because the 7th grade population never really had a 6th grade year where a bunch of them came on. So at least I'm kind of treating the 6th grade and the 7th grade like one big bunch. And so there might be a little bit more, mixing up of those grades on the teams than in the past.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, Lisa. The 7th graders haven't had a chance yet to play middle school basketball. So, that's why we want to, we're going to do our tryouts all in kind of one large group and kind of parse them out into stations. And part of the reason why we're using that Friday tryout, after a couple of cuts for callbacks, is to try and figure out for each kid that will make a team, A, B, or C, what will be the best situation for them in our eyes, based on maybe their size, their playing experience, stuff like that. So we're just, trying to figure out the number of kids we're going to totally keep in the whole program, and then figure out what's the best situation for them individually on each team.
We're really lucky to have such awesome coaches that are they're looking out for trying to, make this work for as many kids as possible. I always appreciate that.
Can I ask one more question about Ultimate Frisbee? So my son plays Ultimate, and of course their practices are Wednesday, Friday, and their championship game is on Saturday. But I also know basketball is his #1 priority, so he's not going to want to miss tryouts at all. But he's also been raised to stay committed and responsible to whatever he's signed up for. So I'm somewhat torn. So if at some point coaches know that he can miss either a Wednesday or a Friday in order to go to Ultimate, I would really appreciate that, because he won't ask to do that. He will go to basketball, and that's great. But I also have really appreciated the Ultimate coaches, and I don't want to let them down either. So
Yes.
I completely agree with you 100%. He needs to finish what he starts, back his commitment. And it looks like if he's going to miss one of the first 3 tryouts, we'll still be able to see him twice. And if he's, on the fence after the first tryout, and he can't make it the second day, we're going to err on the side of seeing him again at that 3rd tryout. we want to be able to give it at least every kid two days or 2 looks. And that's why it's good that we have 4 days to try and knock this out. So in your situation, you know, he's going to get that second look.
Okay, I'm pretty sure he'll go to 3. He'll probably miss 1 ultimate and go to 1 ultimate. I mean, go to 3 basketball and go to 1 ultimate. I'm assuming that's what he'll do. But okay.
Totally up to you. But I'm 100% in agreement with your philosophy there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so the boys practices, and I know that the girls program is going to have another meeting tomorrow, and so I'm just going to go over the boys practice times. The JV will be practicing right after school on Mondays and Wednesdays. The JVC will practice after the JV. We're just working out exactly how that's going to work, because Wednesdays, of course, we have early release. So we just want to, I didn't put the exact times up here right now because I want to be careful about that. And then the varsity will actually practice the latest. So just kind of be aware of that. That's on Mondays and Wednesdays. And then on Fridays, all of the entire boys program is going to have a skill development with coaches from all 3 teams. And it's not mandatory, but highly recommended from 5:15 to 6:30, which I think is awesome. And I'm very excited about that. All right, so as far as the decision-making process for the coaches as for tryouts, let me go ahead and go through some of the kind of the details of the structure first, and then at the end, if they would like to address that, then we'll do it then, if that's okay. So again, after school for Monday is probably going to start at 4, but the exact times we get out early. Andrew, we got out earlier on Wednesday. So Wednesday we'll start earlier because we don't, or possibly start earlier because our kids get out earlier. And practice should be about 1.5 hours each time. 3 hours total for the week. Okay. All right. Okay, so we have Saturday games, and there's going to be specific things. And at this point, I am going to go back for a second and just talk about what Jeff mentioned, which is that I get all of the grade checks for all the students. I put together a roster, and on those roster, I give to the coach. I have to sign it, and I give it to the coach, and the coach takes it with him or her to the game. Now, this roster is a little bit more important than it has been in the past, because not only am I saying that they're cleared as far as their grades, but they're also cleared as far as their testing. And the coaches have to have this roster to get into the game facility. Okay, and no players can actually enter the game site. So if we were playing at, let's say, Nathan Hale, the players can't enter the game site until the coach is there. So the coach has to enter, and ideally, the coach meets their players right outside and they all go together. But if that doesn't work, as long as the coach goes in first, the players can come in after. And they enter, they have to their names have to be cleared on this roster that I sign off on for every team every week that there's games. And then they must complete an attestation. Now, we're really lucky that because we're having COVID testing in the school, we don't have to do attestation for practices, but they're still going to require attestations at the game sites. So as the coaches go in, there will be somebody there who will ask the coaches and the players to go through an attestation process. I can't imagine it's going to take very long. It's like answering 4 questions. You know, I think for those of you that remember from last spring, it's 4 or 5 questions and it's yes, no, you know, have you, you know, do you have COVID? Do you have these symptoms? That kind of thing. Okay, so that's the attestation. And then there's the information about the game roster. And again, clearance is now not just grades, but it's also about the testing. So that's why if a student is not making their testing on Friday, then they can't be on that game roster. So we need to make sure that everybody understands to do that. I'm a little bit nervous about it because I know middle schoolers forget things, And so I'm trying to figure out how to kind of remind them that there's going to be a little bit of this, that the players are going to just need to know they have to get it done. All right. Okay. So I think I already mentioned this. The coach and players will not be admitted without the roster and proof of participant negative COVID test. Okay. And again, if you submitted a vaccination card to me, then that counts. Okay. At this time, and you notice I highlighted it in red because it's at this time, we are hoping this will change. But at this time, no spectators are going to be allowed at the games. Okay, so the coaches are going to go in with their players. Now, there's a couple exceptions here, and I'm going to I know it's a lot of words. I'm sorry. I knew it was a lot of information here. Each team can have 2 media people that have been vaccinated to come and stream and record the game. So I'm going to leave that up to individual coaches after the teams have been formed to figure out who is willing and can come to each game to stream and record the game. Okay. In addition, the JV games often don't have refs, and we've been actually having a ref shortage all around Seattle right now. So if you are somebody that either has experience reffing or you're interested, we can bring one parent who's interested in reffing to each JV and JVC game. Now, there is going to be a jamboree for the varsity in December, and they are going to kind of help train any parents or volunteers who are interested in learning a little bit about officiating the JV games. So that might be a time to get her some practice in if you're a little nervous about it, but you're interested in doing it. Okay, and so again, both the media people and the volunteer parent or ref, and it could be a parent, somebody from a family, they just need to be vaccinated, and then they can come to each game. And there could be some rotation. You just need to get people cleared. Okay, that's all that needs to happen there. And let me just really quick, Jeff, question?
So Mary, on the video component, I'm looking into being able to leverage the YouTube channels to stream the games. Roosevelt has been very successful with this. They have 2 channels due to, a few game conflicts, but I'm looking into this and I can share more details with you as we get it hopefully ironed out. But I've tried to create a Eckstein YouTube page that people can subscribe to, and I'll send you a note once it's all set up.
Awesome, Jeff. Thank you so much. And definitely I want to, as much as possible, let's try to take care of that. And we're kind of pretty lucky in basketball in that we have a few weeks before the official game. We actually have a whole month from when tryouts are happening to when games start. So hopefully we can get all of this organized and make sure everybody can access the streaming. And it's possible that in between that time, they will also change the requirements. Like I said, things are constantly changing, but I really appreciate, I know Jeff had mentioned before to me that he has a lot of experience with that. So that's awesome. And let's see. So Matt has asked, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just to add to that, our daughter Adelaide played for Roosevelt Volleyball, and the varsity team, they did an awesome job of streaming. So if you run into any problems, I could connect you with the mom that set up the YouTube for the varsity volleyball team, because it worked great. Family all over could watch. It was great. So let me know if you run into any problems. I'd happy to connect you.
And lives 3 doors down from me.
Okay.
So.
Perfect.
And
Then we're
Bruce Bailey, last year's or 2 years ago's varsity head coach, has set up a lot of the YouTube stuff for Roosevelt. So I'm working on it.
Perfect.
Thank you
Lots
so
of expertise. Yeah. And the only thing I would just say is that we, as long as we have to people have to sign up for it and it's not just public access, it should work. I will clarify with our administration, but I think as long as we're limiting the access to our families from each team, then we will be satisfying our confidentiality stuff that we need to do. Let's see, Matt is just asking, the kids are responsible for going somewhere, nurse's office. Okay, so there's a COVID health room at our school, and what we'll be doing, I would anticipate that a lot of our, our kids that need to get tested are going to be, I'm going to send out, at least for next Monday, I'm going to send out little slips to report to their homeroom teachers, and the homeroom teachers will send them to the COVID health room to get their test. And we know that at least at the beginning, we're going to be, this is new for everybody. And so we're going to be figuring out how to get it to become a habit for those students. Okay, so, all right. Yeah, the boys' practice times, Laura, are a little bit vague because we're still working them out. So that's why. They're not completely set yet. All right. Okay, so there's going to be a jamboree for the varsity teams on December 11th. And as I said before, that's an opportunity for anyone who's interested in helping becoming a ref for the JV teams in training during that time. The official games won't start until January. Let's see. The structure of the season will be a little different than previous seasons, but it will be similar to the girls' soccer, if any of you are familiar with that. So for the first 3 weeks, what happens is they put our teams kind of in a group with 3 other teams, and they play each other. So those 4 teams play each other for the first 3 weeks. And so it's limiting how many teams are at a location. They go to the same location for 3 weeks, and then they just swap. So after 3 weeks, you've played 3 other teams, and it's the same 4 teams at that location. And then they look at the how well each team did, like who's in first place, second place, that kind of thing. And then the next 3 weeks, they base it on the results of the regional play, and they move into pool play. Okay, and so then they might move a little bit more, but they're always hoping that they can kind of limit how many locations you're going to and so forth, and how many teams are moving around and interacting. The JV teams, as much as possible, will follow the varsity teams. So a lot of the schools have issues with the coaching, not having enough coaches. And so they're trying to line up so that the varsity and the JV will play at gyms that are close by. And so if they needed the varsity coach to also coach JV, that would be possible. So that's how they're going to run the schedule. And Jeff, did you have your hand up for again, or was that from before? That's from before. Okay. All right. All right. Then there's a skills challenge on February 19th, and they are looking for partners to support this event. So if any of you know some basketball programs that might be interested, go ahead and you can let me know, and I will pass that information along. Question was, is there buses or parents drive to games? The parents will be driving to the games, but I know that if you need to arrange carpools, we have, lots of really great parents and families to step up and help out. Lisa?
Does that mean that Saturday, the 19th, there will not be scheduled games? That's President's Day weekend?
Yes, that is the way it worked for soccer, so I'm assuming it will be the same for basketball.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay, so I want to do a reminder here that, and if you want to take a quick snip of this screen to get this, this is a girls basketball players and parents Zoom meeting. That's tomorrow at 6 o'clock for those of you that are interested in following up with that. And then I think that's it. Now, I know there was a question earlier about specifics on how tryouts, how kids are going to get cut. What are some of the determining factors? And so if any of the coaches want to address that at this time, this would be an awesome opportunity.
What particular questions?
It was just a general question about let's see here, the
Stu,
decision
it was about the
process
evaluation process.
Well, I won't speak for the girls, but for the boys side, we've organized kind of progressive, each day progressive skill stations. So the first night of tryouts, we're going to have each of our coaches in the different programs, JVC, JV, and varsity, running skill stations where we're assessing kind of their basic ball handling ability, passing, catching, footwork, movement, speed, agility, stuff like that. And that will give us a good baseline from the beginning. And then as we go through the tryouts, we add a little bit more progression to the stations. But basically, we're going to have them in stations doing different skill work to make a long story short. And then we'll obviously do just kind of the typical transition drills, seeing them run up and down the court offensively and defensively, and also half court, how they play in the half court, what their footwork's like, how aggressive they are. That's basically the process. Obviously looking for certain skill sets at the varsity level, down to the JV and JVC, with kids, especially since COVID, that they haven't really been able to play a lot of organized basketball at those lower grade levels. Things like effort, effort at all three levels, but especially effort and athleticism, and just kind of spatial awareness are things we're looking for, attributes in the kids. So if you need to give your kid some, words of wisdom, just say, try as hard as you can, every single play, and the chips will fall where they may. But we have some really good coaches with a lot of experience, so we're gonna handle it the best we can.
Thanks, Stu.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, you're muted.
I'm happy to go into more detail tomorrow night, but I'll just echo what Stu said. Looking for skills. The one difference is that for the 8th grade tryouts, it's going to be run more like a practice since most of those are returning. So that'll be more practice-like tryout than it will be the tryout. But the first part will be mostly drills. The second part going into kind of one-on-one and one-on-ones and scrimmaging. And what my big message for tomorrow night with the kids on is to let them know that we're only going to be looking for their basketball superpowers. We're not really looking for mistakes at this point. We're just looking for their greatness. And yeah, we have 5 sets of coaching eyes on them. So they're going to get lots of evaluation. I can guarantee that every kid's going to get seen. And then the coaches will spend late nights collaborating and figuring out who makes the team.
Thank you to both of you. I'm going to go ahead, and now we have our recording. I'm going to stop the recording in a moment, and I'm going to post it once it gets, all published and ready to be published. We'll post it on the website so people who weren't here, if you know anybody, they can look at the recording. But also, I posted again, the first day of testing will be next Monday, and I will send out a request during homeroom. And so, but in order to get a request, the student has to have a consent form on file. So, and all of you can go ahead, and if you need to email me, you can, but just know that we have around 120 families that are looking at basketball. So I will do my best to respond to you as quick as I can. And there might be a little bit of, delay. So just be aware of that. And I just want to say I appreciate everyone being here and getting the word out. We're really excited for a wonderful basketball season. We just ended a fabulous soccer season. We have a couple more weeks for Ultimate Frisbee, and you know, Eckstein's a great place to play sports. So we're going to be, and we have some great coaches here, and I'm really excited for your kids to be able to participate. All of the forms should be on the website. If you email me, I often respond and send them directly to you.
You're so wonderful, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you to everybody. I love basketball. I'm so glad to be out of that rain. It's time for basketball. All right, take care.